Well, we're all waiting, of course, for that big moment where President Cyril Ramaphosa is expected to take us through his cabinet, but it would seem that there are lots and lots of problems with regard to who he wants to appoint versus what the demands that are being made by those that are part of the GNU arrangement. We're joined on the line by analyst Sandile Swana, who is going to help me with the conversation that we are going to have. A very good afternoon to you, Mr. Swana. Thank you very much for your time. I just want, the other weekend while I was in Cape Town, I had an opportunity to speak to some of the officials that are giving support to the ANC's Secretary General and, of course, the negotiating team. And they made a claim that, they were well prepared as the ANC for the moment that they are finding themselves in now. But 2 weeks later, I'm finding it very difficult to actually believe that.
Oh, thank you so much, Kuyo, and good evening to your viewers of Newzroom Afrika. Now, I agree with your sentiment. Really, the fact of the matter is that from last year, certainly by January this year, it was clear as daylight that the ANC is going to get below 45% of the vote, and even closer to 40. So the DA knew about this, the ANC knew about this. But when we look at the fiasco that happened last week, it became clear that these leaders have not mutually prepared for this eventuality, which science made it possible to know that it was coming after the May 29 election. So Helen Zille says that probably she knew that this election would have this outcome, probably 4 years before. And yet, when we look at the preparations of the DA, they also leave much to be desired. So yes, I agree with you that the standard of leadership at a national level here in South Africa, in the DA and in the ANC, leaves much to be desired as we speak today.
I'm looking at one of the, key demands by the DA, which is that of, the position of country deputy president. And, ANC officials and insiders have been adamant that is not going to happen. Do you think the DA is going to go for broke and say it's either that or nothing?
Thank you. What has happened now, even as the ANC has closed, and I don't know what criteria they used to close, at 70% of the support within the National Assembly. With that, what they have done is to demonstrate that they've got capacity to mobilize people. And as they do that, they show the DA that the DA is not the only avenue through which they can form a government. So that if the DA were to go for broke, indeed it would be for broke for them, not for the ANC. The ANC actually right now, as it starts its career now in the coalition politics at a national level, by using its old strategy of a broad church, it has actually secured this position. And knowing the ANC, nothing stops the ANC from making other deals from time to time with the EFF and Umkhonto weSizwe for that matter. So the DA cannot overplay its strength. It doesn't have absolute strength.
Now, I'm looking, someone like Paul Mashatile, the deputy president of the ANC, if my reading, of politics is correct, it would suggest that this is something the ANC won't do because of the implications it will have, for the party internally. Is it wise, for the Democratic Alliance? Do they have a proper reading of the ANC's politics when they make a demand that the ANC drop Mashatile for Johnson Hazen? Is it prudent on their part to make that a key demand?
No, it's not wise. It's not wise. Cyril Ramaphosa knows. Cyril Ramaphosa, with his CR17 funding from the big business in South Africa, and bear in mind that even within that so-called big business, there were also black multimillionaires that funded CR17. And that CR17 had a mandate to unite the ANC because a lot of other analysts have said that you don't want to remove the ANC from power, not knowing what are you going to replace it with. The DA is not a replacement of the ANC. There's no chance of replacing the ANC. So by and large, you need an ANC government and you need a black government, if you want to call it that. And that post of deputy president, if Ramaphosa was to be seen to be betraying or knifing Paul Mashatile unnecessarily, because really the ANC is desperate superficially. It is only desperate to the extent that it wants to please big business. That is the only extent which it is desperate. Otherwise, it is not desperate. So that desperation has got its own limits, because even there, even economically, there are options for the ANC, even without the DA. So let alone this so-called coalition of disaster, whatever they called it. Those are just dead snakes, frightening people with dead snakes. So Ramaphosa, with his track record of splitting in December the ANC against Zuma, if he launches another attack against Mashatile, there could be another split in the ANC immediately.
I'm looking then at the economic cluster. We look at Gwede Mantashe, the chairman of the ANC, has minerals portfolio. I'm looking at the position that was occupied by Pravin Gordhan as Minister of Public Enterprises. I'm looking at the Finance Minister, Enoch Godongwana. I'm looking at the Transport Minister, who's been very active, certainly, in the run-up to the elections, Omam Chigunga. Now, all these people, these are the key economic cluster, key economic ministry, and the DA wants in on those. I'm wondering what should be, what does President Cyril Ramaphosa do now? Because these are key. Pravin Gordhan is going to. Is not returning. But you have Godongwana, you have Chigunga, you have Gwede Mantashe. Does he give these ministries to the DA? Do you see him doing that?
And electricity. Now, it's going to be tough to necessarily give them to the DA, because that is also, I'm not saying some of them he won't give to the DA, but the trouble that Cyril Ramaphosa has put himself in, which is what ATM has raised, and probably it's the same thing that Depadile Hutla would have raised. In fact, he did raise it, not now during this heated moment, long before this time, that we needed to review these things and go through a national dialogue, and through that national dialogue, know what we want to do. So, for instance, with National Treasury, Enoch Godongwana is not a competent Minister of Finance by any stretch of imagination. So what he did there is just to be a mounting land, keep things as they are, and keep my term of office and pension very well. We are not sure what the DA is going to do that is different, because that section, for instance, of finance has moved into what many call a neoliberal perspective. But it is more conservative. Our treasury is even more conservative than the USA treasury in terms of being more innovative in job creation and things like that. And the DA has got disastrous policies in terms of job creation. If we were to follow the DA as it is, unless it has written other suggestions elsewhere, our unemployment would increase by at least 1 million to 2 million to about between 13 and 14 million after 5 years. So we do need to be clear about anybody who wants any portfolio, what do they want to do with it? And Cyril needs to know who is the most competent people to do what and what is it that needs to be done. So he is shooting in the dark at the moment, and the DA is taking chances.
But now, where does that then put, I mean, if the ANC is not willing, or President Cyril Ramaphosa is not willing to relent on the Mashatile position, if he would be unwilling, to give these key economic ministries to the DA, does that mean necessarily the unraveling of this whole GNU concept?
No, it doesn't mean that. You must remember that the DA has got a fixed constituency. So the ANC is more at risk than the DA from the position of what are they going to reap at the end of 5 years. In fact, on 2 occasions, in the elections of 2026 and in the elections of 2029, the DA has got a secure constituency, which are the white South African voting citizens. That is the constituency of the DA, and that constituency is secure. Those people are not going to go and vote for the EFF. They are not going to go and vote for MK. They are not going to go and vote for ANC. They are going to club their votes and concentrate their votes on the DA. So any unwise decision by Cyril is going to cost the ANC. The people who are losing and who have a chance of losing more is the ANC. And Cyril is not desperate. He can make himself desperate unnaturally, but in terms of what is on the table, he's not desperate. If the DA wants to leave, the DA must be able to leave. And there is no problem. The DA has done a good job as an opposition party, and you can take the ideas of the DA and put competent people to implement them and so on and so forth. There is no problem. There is no crisis. And the ANC, where it is right now with the work that it has done, it has no crisis, and it must not create a crisis for itself.
Now, I'm looking at the speed with which conversations have gone over the past week, certainly with regard to your Al Jamas, your UDMs, your Rise Mzansis, and so on. Is one reading too much into it by thinking that perhaps having gone through various stumbling blocks with the DA arrangement, the ANC could well be preparing an alternative arrangement?
It's not necessarily an alternative arrangement. As Mtumiseni Ntuli has said before, he said, leave the issue of protecting the ANC in the hands of the ANC. The DA said so-and-so is not going to be admitted, and this and the other one. Both Tony Leon and Zille went up there and said all sorts of things. And actually more people got admitted into and then that idea of admission into the club is going to be now opened to the extent that all 10 parties will decide whether a new member will be admitted or not without the DA having any veto. So that has been neutralized already. So the DA needs to start sensing that it has a right to participate in the GNU, as they call it, but it is not the boss of the GNU. And the ANC has had to assure many constituencies, which are different from those of the DA, that it is not going to be totally under the control of the DA. So the assistance that it gets from the UDM, Al Jama, and everybody else is of the same quality as what it will get from the DA. Therefore, the DA does not need to think that it is better than all the other participants in the coalition.
Looking at where things are right now with respect to both the ANC and the DA, does it appear to you, Mr. Swana, that they both have a clear idea on how they are going to progress or move beyond this point? And I'm saying both in the sense that does the ANC, is there evidence out there, something we can see and point at, that shows that the ANC is clear about what it wants to achieve as it gets into this government of national unity arrangement? And I'm asking the same question about the DA. Are they, or have they demonstrated that they are any clearer about what they would want to achieve out of the arrangement they've gotten into with the ANC?
Okay, so there are two things. The first one, and my studies up to this point are that the IFP in the KZN province, which is where they learned their lessons really, are probably the most competent party in running these coalitions, hostile coalitions, potentially hostile coalitions. So we would hope that a lot of learnings from KZN would be used to create a governance mechanism for the GNU, as they call it, this grand coalition of theirs, how they are going to run that. That is important because we know that the first GNU actually failed. It did not survive. I think it lasted about 2 years. But the IFP has been very successful in this, and the ANC in KZN. So there are a lot of lessons from there that can be put in here. And I am not saying I am aware that those lessons are in place, but I'm sure in the past 10 days, the DA has learned some expensive lessons. Coming to the other side, which is the potential performance side, the quality of the work that needs to be done, the delivery of the NDP, of which the NDP has not been implemented since 2012. It's a total disaster right now. So they don't have a clear plan of what they are going to do. You mentioned, for instance, ministries of transport and this and many others. We don't know what's going to happen. In as much as those things are crucial, in as much as those things are mentioned in the NDP, this cabinet that Ramaphosa is trying to appoint, we don't even know how fit for purpose it is and what are the quantums, the exact amounts that they need to deliver within 5 years. We don't know that. So the work is not cut out for them. The DA is just walking around profiling themselves as experts of everything with no measurables.
And then with regard to, let's say, I mean, the 8 other small parties that now form part of this arrangement, is there anything special or specific that that they could do?
In a funny way, really, there is nothing special anybody has got to do. What the ANC is, the situation that the ANC has created here, if we're to be totally honest, it's like the student who comes to class and when the homework is demanded by the teacher, all that they can explain is that the homework was done, but it was eaten by the dog. The work that needs to be done has been clear. And during the Mbeki era, the work was done at a record-setting level. And many of our industries were setting international benchmarks. And then this group came in after the Polokwane conference, where the main idea was that nothing is done. So whether you are Olomisa, you are given this ministry, or you are Sorenso or given that ministry, the first thing that will make you a superstar is just to get the basics of that job done, which at the moment is not getting done. As I sit here, I think after reading the progress report on the NDP, which is published by the state, I'm very clear about what needs to be done. And there are people who are even clearer than myself. So there's no confusion about that. If you have a good work ethic, get on with it, get the professionals to get their job, to do their jobs every day. You don't have to be a particular genius at the level of crisis that we're in. This crisis doesn't need a genius. It just needs somebody who's going to go to the work office every day and put in a solid day's work, which has not been done for the past 15 years.
Mr. Swana, thank you very much for your time. Really appreciate it.
Thank you so much.